All right, let's talk about something huge. We're going to dive into one of the biggest, most powerful, and yet most invisible pieces of tech that's making our green energy future actually possible.
But first, let me ask you something. What if I told you that the world's biggest batteries, I'm talking about the ones that could power entire cities, weren't batteries at all? What if they were something totally different?
Well, the answer, it might be right under your feet. And I mean that literally. They're caves.
Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about these gigantic, man-made caverns deep underground. So let's get into how these incredible caves of power are completely changing the energy game.
Okay, so when I say caves, don't picture just any old hole in the ground. These are vast, man-made salt caverns, and their geology is what makes them so special. See, salt rock is kind of amazing. It's self-repairing and super stable. It has this ultra-low permeability, which basically means almost nothing can leak in or out. They're like nature's perfect pressure vessels. And hey, this isn't some brand new idea. We've actually been using these things for decades to store all kinds of crucial energy resources.
So we've got these incredible underground containers. Cool. But what's the problem they're actually solving? Well, it all comes down to the big one, the green energy dilemma.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole challenge with renewable energy. Think about it. On one hand, you've got a supply that comes and goes, right? Solar panels need the sun, wind turbines need the wind. But on the other hand, you've got us with our constant demand. We all expect the lights to turn on 24/7 no matter what the weather's like. That creates a huge fundamental mismatch.
You know, this is the single biggest hurdle for a fully renewable grid. It's not really about generating the power. We're getting pretty good at that. It's all about that on-again, off-again nature. So the real question becomes, how do you bottle up all that energy from a super windy afternoon and save it for a calm evening when everyone's home turning on their lights?
Well, the solution is surprisingly elegant, and it's literally all around us. The answer is storing that energy in air.
And this brings us to the star of the show, compressed air energy storage, or CAES for short. The concept? It's beautifully simple. When you have way more electricity than you need, say on a sunny, windy day, you use it to power these huge compressors. They just force a ton of air into one of those salt caverns at incredibly high pressure. You're basically bottling up that energy. Then, later, when demand is high, you just release that pressurized air and it spins a turbine to generate electricity all over again.
I absolutely love this analogy because it just captures the whole idea perfectly. Think of it like a giant mechanical lung for the power grid. When there's too much solar or wind power, the grid just inhales, packing all that air tightly into the cavern. And then when demand spikes later on, the grid exhales, releasing that air to generate power exactly when we need it most.
So how does this whole mechanical lung thing actually work? Well, it all boils down to a really simple, elegant three-step cycle.
It's a really straightforward cycle. Step 1 is charge. When there's more wind or solar power than we can use, that extra juice is used to compress air and shove it into the cavern. Step 2 is store. That high-pressure air just sits there. It's basically a massive battery of potential energy, just waiting. And finally, step 3, discharge. When the city needs that power, the air is released, it spins a turbine, and boom, electricity goes right back to the grid.
So the process itself is pretty straightforward, right? But it's the sheer scale of this technology that really makes it a total game changer. These caverns, they're not just big batteries. They're pretty much the ultimate storage unit for our entire energy grid.
And this is where the scale just becomes mind-boggling. I mean, we're not talking about kilowatt hours like what's in your phone or an electric car. We are talking about gigawatt days. To put that in perspective, a single gigawatt is enough to power around 750,000 homes. This tech can store that much power for days at a time. We're talking sustained energy for entire cities.
So how does it stack up against other options? This chart here compares what's called round-trip efficiency. That's just a fancy way of saying how much energy you get back for every unit you put in. And yeah, you can see that CAES isn't always the most efficient kid on the block, but, and this is the key, its ability to store just massive amounts of energy for long periods of time and at a way lower cost than batteries makes it an incredibly powerful and, frankly, necessary tool for keeping the whole grid stable.
And this just goes to show you how valuable these geological formations are. They are definitely not a one-trick pony. For decades, we've been using these exact same kinds of salt caverns to store everything from natural gas and hydrogen all the way to our strategic oil reserves. They are a proven, foundational piece of our entire energy infrastructure.
So let's kind of pull back and see how this all comes together, building an energy future that's not only powerful and reliable, but also almost entirely invisible.
And really, this gets to the heart of the whole thing. When we picture green energy, what do we see? We see solar panels, we see wind turbines. But the real transition to a truly renewable grid, it depends just as much on this hidden foundation, buried deep beneath our feet. It's the quiet, unseen workhorse that makes the whole system actually work.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? We figured out this ingenious way to create giant batteries out of nothing but thin air and old salt deposits. It makes you wonder, what other powerful, game-changing solutions are just sitting there, waiting to be discovered, right beneath our feet?